Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting of October 3rd, 2013. I think I have a little feedback. We have a great crowd here tonight, and I hear our ratings are going up, so this is good to see. We'll start off with Town Administrator David Williams reading our agenda for us tonight.
Thank you. We'll start off with a vote to approve or amend the agenda, and then public comment period. And at 6:15, an elder housing update from the Elder Housing Committee. After that, consideration of a proclamation for Nora Barrowford in its celebration of her 100th birthday. At 6:45, consideration of various appointments, committee appointments. Do you want me to read down through the list of?
No, we'll
Okay.
get to those when we get to
Okay.
that agenda. Thanks.
After that, we'll have a discussion about sunsetting of committees. And then around 7:30, town administrator report, any selectmen reports, and approval of minutes and warrant.
Great. Are there any amendments to the agenda tonight, gents? No? I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
All in favor? Great. Okay, off we go to the races. We have public comment. Is there any public comment? Yes, sir, Mr. Fisk. Please come up to the microphone. It's good to see you, George.
Nice to see you all. Thank you for letting me come in. You may remember I was here a couple of months ago.
Yes.
And I'm here for the same thing. And that is that I invite you to attend the 100th anniversary celebration of the Historical Society, which is taking place tomorrow evening. There's a preview party at the community center. We have an art show that is turning out to be really quite something special. I'm very pleased. We've had a gang there all day, and we're still there working away. And there have been submissions from local artists as well as submissions from non-artists who have art which pertains to the town and the town's history. There also is a terrific new display of old stuff by the Historical Society there. It's at the community center tomorrow evening, 6 to 9. And it's on Saturday. On Saturday, it's open to the public, free to the public. And that's from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. Great event. I did have Paul's email, so I sent him an invitation. He's already said, yes, he's coming. So sorry I didn't have your email addresses, but that's why I'm here tonight. So I'm making the pitch to you and obviously to everybody who's here in the room or watching on TV.
Terrific, that's
There you
great.
go.
So tomorrow night, it's open to the public. It's there's a charge.
There is a $25 per person charge, wine and cheese reception, and we have what appears to be a very nice turnout.
Excellent.
So we're very pleased.
Thanks for letting us know, reminding us all. That's
There you
great,
go.
George.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comment? Pretty quiet crowd. That's great. Okay, then we'll move along. I think we'll go. Kitty, you ready to go? You want to go early, a few minutes early? We'll allow you a longer time that way, if you need it.
You don't need to stretch it out.
Yeah.
Joey is not here yet, though, is he?
Not yet. I know he's running back from a sports.
Okay.
He'll be here.
So do you want to wait a few minutes and we'll fill in?
Sure, we'll sit here and,
Okay, why don't we skip down? I don't want to put the superintendent on the spot, but I see he's here and I welcome him. I'm glad to see you, Mr. Stephen Bliss.
and we'll give you a chair at the microphone if you wish.
If and when, that's great. Thank you so much. Okay. Why don't we do minutes approval and approval of the warrant, if that works for you, gents?
Sure.
I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of August 8th and August 26th.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Great. And I'll take a motion to approve the warrant in the amount of $1,232,744.89. It includes a variety of vendor payments as well as payroll, and included is the monthly payment for the region. So that's why that number's fairly substantial.
Has town administrator signed off on that?
Yes, town administrator signed off on it. I've reviewed it briefly just before the meeting.
Motion to approve?
And we have I accept that motion, a friendly amendment. We have a few signatures still to be done before it's released. And I'll second that motion then. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, you didn't get a chance to see it.
No, this,
Oppose, you want to oppose it, Paul?
no, I'm gonna abstain. This one employee who's supposed to be working less than 20 hours,
Okay.
is over 20 hours.
All right.
And
just as a matter of policy.
Right.
I don't want us to back into having to provide health insurance to someone by inadvertence, so.
So, fine, that's fine. I'm good to go with it, and Mike is. Okay. Okay. Still waiting, Kitty? David, do you have anything to report under town administrator report at this stage?
Yeah, there were two things I was going to bring up. One was the Pine Hill Access Road is significantly underway.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the superintendent would like to say anything on that. But looks good up there. Progress is underway.
Yes, and so it does seem fairly wide, but it is following the plan that was approved at town meeting
Right.
several years back, and that was the approval process that the town went through to follow
Right.
that plan.
Right.
So it's going well. Hopefully, we're not disrupting school with the work that's being done too much.
Not at all, and we just wanted to extend our thanks and appreciation to the town of Sherborn, the selectmen, and of course to Mr. Wagner, who has done a great job at beginning to clear the land. I know oftentimes we don't hear the compliments extended to folks, but we want to extend our sincere thanks for helping to ensure the safety of all the inhabitants of our campus at Pine Hill. Ed actually hosted a little field trip for us earlier this week and brought us through the entire road. So we appreciate all of his efforts and that of the town of Sherborn.
Right, yeah, I went up there yesterday to check it out, and the guy with the steam shovel was hard at it, and he stopped, and we chatted briefly. So, yeah, they're moving along.
They really are. Thank you.
Just for the benefit of our viewers, this is a temporary fix, but we do have in place legislative approval. We also have in place an appropriation at the state level for $1 million, which hasn't been released yet because of fiscal restraints that the Commonwealth has. But one day, that road will become something more than what is there now.
And the work we're doing, as approved at town meeting, the amount's about $80,000, and the game plan is the work that's being done is not going to be wasted if and when this road funding comes to fruition. So
But we didn't want to wait for the funding because we want to make sure everybody's safe right from the get-go.
And especially where it's a shelter for the town as well. It's important. And I'd be remiss in not thanking Mr. Williams as well as, of course, Mr. Hess, our chairman of our school committee, who's just been a champion of the cause all along, and we thank Mr. Hess for all he does.
great.
Thank you.
Super.
The other item I was going to say, I just wanted to thank Ed Wagner, CM&D Director, Rick Thompson, Chief of Police, and Tim Morrissey, our new fire chief. The four of us went to Dover Sherborn Cable today and recorded a show on public safety. That will be airing coming up, so keep your eyes open.
Good, so some of the topics on that, you got something to say there, Chief?
It was basically public safety and storm
Storm
preparation.
planning.
You can speak.
So it would behoove the residents to pay attention to this video
Right.
in anticipation of potential storms we might be dealing with.
It's just some friendly advice and some resources that residents can look at. And we also invited Diane Lewis to our next event.
Right, she's key on the phone in the office during these storms. She's the,
She hides behind everybody.
I don't know why we don't have a microphone
We
for
need to put
her.
a microphone.
Right, Diane?
So are we zeroing on her face now, please?
No, but again, I can't emphasize enough how impressed I am, having been sitting up here a little bit now, with what we do during storms, and how the team pulls together. We're in good hands, and it's terrific.
The last two things I would like to mention is Forest Street was repaved, and the pavement job came out nice, and we urge you to stay within the speed limit on
Yes.
that road.
Yeah,
And
We're noticing, it's an interesting phenomenon. When the pavement is nice and smooth, people tend to go a little faster. So we've set up, directed traffic enforcement up there. Lieutenant Bento the other morning caught 4 or 5 people doing well over 40 miles an hour there. So we'll keep an eye on it.
And at Woodland Mill intersection, there's a temporary setup studying the traffic configuration there. And we've been getting some comments on that too, which is.
So there, the people who haven't been down that way, what would they see differently at this stage?
Well, basically, there's a three-way stop when there was only a one-way stop before.
So you need to be prepared to deal with that stop if you haven't seen it before.
Yeah, although there's only 2 stop signs.
It's a two-way stop.
It's a two-way.
Oh, we haven't gone three-way.
We haven't,
Oh,
we
okay.
haven't implemented three-way just yet.
But we're going to.
We were down there this afternoon, and for some reason, I counted 3 stop signs. so
Well,
I
I've
must
seen
have
that
double
with
counted.
with some of the stuff you've given us,
You
too.
weren't driving, were you?
That's because they had the cruiser spinning.
You may want to input from whoever knocked some of the cones down last night that I saw this morning, so.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, there must have been somebody who took out part of that turn.
Yeah, okay.
It is a dangerous intersection. Something does need to be done with that intersection. I've seen people drive right through those stop signs. Or the one stop sign. Now there's 2. Maybe they're driving through both stop signs. But if there's a cruiser down there, that might make people aware of the fact that there's a safety issue.
Yeah, yeah,
Because right now, there's a large yellow sign with electrical letters that tells you there's a new intersection, so.
Yeah.
And it's been my experience, the cruisers in Sherborn are typically where I prefer they weren't when I'm not doing what I should be doing.
Is that often?
Yeah, no, I've tempered my,
It's that GPS device.
yeah. Yeah, no, enough said on that, I guess. Anything else on this section, David?
No, that'll do it.
That's great, that's great. Okay, Kitty, do you think
Well,
you're gonna go forward?
We'll start and we'll hold Joey until the end, and hopefully he gets it. I
Okay,
believe he's doing cross-country today, so
I see.
he's at the mercy of the bus schedule.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to thank the board for having Elder Housing Committee here tonight. Since I goofed in sending the request to post this meeting for our committee, which it turns out it went into the town spam, which
My
apparently...
emails do that all the time, and they say, well, we didn't get the email.
Right, well, it happened to me, and I apologize that we will be rather quiet tonight, but everything we are discussing with you tonight, we have discussed at an open meeting.
Can you introduce your members?
Oh, I'm getting there. Okay. So the members that are present from our committee tonight are Joe Meany. I think Mike Kickham is down trying to greet Joey. Joe Cashin, who is our newest member.
Excellent.
Joan Rothney, and our loyal friend Margot Powicki. I have to get rid of the first paragraph, excuse me. Now I go down to the next one. On October 19th, the Dover Sherborn Senior and Junior Football Varsity will do their Community Service Day at Woodhaven. This is the 3rd year that they've done it, and they've, as Joan will attest, they've been a great help to the Landscape Committee, just doing those heavy jobs that we cannot necessarily do ourselves. We have provided the board with our current budget to date, and as you know, it's the fees of the residents pay the budget. It's accumulated the prior year, and then it's appropriated at the annual town meeting for the following fiscal year. The bond issue approved in 2012 in the amount of $500,000 has enabled our committee to start to update apartments as they become vacant. I will ask Joe Meany to review the last few years of our renovation projects. As we hear often from your board, the importance of volunteerism, and Joe is a class act in this regard. Without his expertise, our renovation projects and day-to-day maintenance issues could not be accomplished or addressed in a professional manner. So I publicly want to thank Joe. He's just been my star, and I thank you. And he's so embarrassed. So Joe, the floor is yours.
Well, I think you perhaps know what we're doing with renovations. We are doing all the apartments, as Kitty said, as they become available. And most of the work, or most of the money for the work, is in the kitchens and the baths, which is pretty typical. In the kitchens, new cabinets, new counters, some tile behind some of the counters, new appliances, new outlets, and of course, painting and a new floor. And similarly, in the bathroom, new cabinets, counters, particularly a walk-in shower that we have now. We converted from a tub shower to walk-in, and flooring, painting. And then throughout the apartments, we're putting new carpet almost always, unless for some reason it had just been added recently. And wood ceiling, perimeter molding, and base molding, which really improves it quite a bit. And new outlets throughout. If anybody had an air conditioner that needed attention, they replaced them. So almost throughout, we have new air conditioners. And that's pretty much what we're doing in the units. We've now have 15 units, apartments, fully renovated.
Wow.
4 of those we did onto the
An earlier
earlier
warrant article.
town meeting of 2010.
Yep.
We did 4 of those, but we've done now 11 under the money that Kitty talked about from town meeting of 2012. And those 11 have actually been done in the last 15 months,
Yeah.
just since
How many total units are there?
24,
24.
right.
Okay. So you have
Which
9 more to
20
do.
9 more to do, yes. So we've borrowed 250,000 of that 500, and we spent about 246.
Yep.
But we have no units currently planned for construction.
And that's an open-ended warrant article approval, right?
Yes.
That can go for years. Right?
Yes. So the fact that we did so many units this past year was both a blessing and and it
You had
has downside.
vacancies, yeah.
We had the vacancies. So that makes up, since our budget comes from rental income, we're a little tight this year, but the fact that we now have 23 occupied and
Oh, so 1 vacancy right now.
one vacancy.
Wow.
And as we renovate them, the rates have been going up.
Yep.
So we should be in better shape.
On the renovations, is it fair to say that most of what you've done was approximately 30 years old that you've been replacing, or?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the appliances might not have been that
Right.
old, but yes.
Right.
Surely cabinets, counters, floors, yes.
Or the original?
Yep,
But you've had a replacement program for the appliances over the years,
correct.
Right.
so that,
Excellent.
do you have any more questions of Joe?
No,
Because
so what would you say is the average renovation cost? Somewhere around 25 to 28,000, is that?
More like
Fair statement.
25. The
25.
2 bedrooms, we have 6 two-bedroom apartments, 18 single bedroom.
Yeah,
The 2 bedrooms are more expensive.
okay,
But 25 is a pretty good average.
right. Excellent. That's great. Paul, sure.
Just a couple of things. First, for the benefit again of our viewers, the renovations are not luxurious, over-the-top type of renovations. These are very straightforward, very necessary, very practical renovations. Secondly, the method here is a really good one. Sometimes when people talk about renovating a building, they have to vacate the building, they have to find accommodations for people, do all the work, and then bring everybody back, which is multiple moving, disruption, all this. This phased approach has really worked well. That's why we've gotten so much of this done relatively painlessly. So I think it's been well planned from the get-go. My last observation isn't so much about the renovation project as it is about your name, which has here elderly housing. And
it's elder.
elder, but it's the document's titled elderly. But in either case, the modern phrase is senior. And I wonder if that wouldn't be a more dignified name for the committee than elderly or elder. You might want to consider that.
It does not, the direction come from you as to the naming of the committee?
Well, it used to have a different name, and you all came and asked for it to be changed to Elder.
Yeah.
So this particular name came from you. But as I look around all the towns that I work for, there isn't anybody that has a name like that. They're all senior this, senior that. And senior is the more accustomed name, more frequently seen name. Just a suggestion for you to think about.
I'll bring it to the committee at our October 15th meeting. And we will then make the request of you if they are in favor of that.
Great.
Okay.
We'd be open for that, for sure. Anything else, Paul, at this stage?
Oh, just a general praise. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the budget report you gave us, Kitty, did we provide you that, or did you do that using our information? Just trying to understand the logistics a little bit.
I gave you, I
I
emailed
just
to-
have a one sheet, yeah.
This is what our treasurer, Marty Waters,
Oh.
provides to us each month
Okay,
at the meeting.
okay.
And it starts with the budget, which is in the left-hand side, and then it shows you what's remaining in the budget.
And Marty periodically will reconcile with
He
Ruth's
reconciles
records
with Ruth's records every time.
every time?
Every warrant,
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, he's fanatical on that.
yeah.
It's a lot of pride there.
And nothing jumps out, obviously, in what you've shown us here, and
No, we've-
it all makes sense with timing and so forth.
Mhm.
If you've used nothing, it's a timing issue. If you've used a bunch, it's a timing, it's a normal timing of when things are paid versus what the budget amount is, right? Okay.
So, and most of this is a monthly payment.
Yes.
Like to our
The-
management
Understood.
and telephone and things like that.
Yep.
Okay, I only have two more paragraphs, and then if we could step back until Joey gets here, I would appreciate that, because,
You bet.
okay. As you may remember, our committee is comprised of 9 members. In recent years, we have operated with just 7 members. Last spring, the board approved the appointment of Joe Cashin as an additional member, and we could still use another member, and hope someone seeing this meeting could send a letter of interest to the town administrator or to myself.
And Kitty, on that, you don't necessarily need an elder or senior
No,
type
no.
person, right? You-
No, if we had a teenager that was interested,
Yeah, wouldn't that be
Love to-
great? Wouldn't
love
that be
to have
fun
them.
for everybody?
yeah,
Wow.
then they'll learn how to treat their grandparents.
Yeah, exactly.
The grandparents will learn how to treat them.
So, over 30 years ago, the town of Sherborn made a commitment for elder or senior housing. The Woodhaven residents, members of our committee, and myself, thank the townspeople, this Board of Selectmen, and prior boards for their support over the years, and look forward to this partnership continuing for many years to come. And if we may sort of step back until Joey gets here, we'd be appreciative.
Sure. No, I think the whole way we're doing things is proven quite successful. And it's thanks, I think, in large part to the continuing efforts of your committee making, you guys are paying attention,
Well,
very carefully paying
We,
attention here.
it's something worth paying attention to, and we enjoy the people that are living there, and they come to our meetings, and they let us know if they have a concern. And
Well, imagine if we had to pay someone to do what you're all doing to help manage this.
I think I learned many years ago, the volunteer job is the best fun going.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
That's
right,
great.
Paul?
Yep.
Okay, we will step back
Okay,
until
that's
Joey
terrific.
gets here. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Well, we could do, why don't we move into I guess we'll go the proclamation, even though it's a little early. We have a proclamation for Nora Barraford celebrating her 100th birthday. It's another resident in town celebrating her 100th birthday. It must be the water. It must be the people in the community. It must be something. But as we did in the last 2 versions, Paul read them, and he did such a fine job, I would like you to read it again if you could.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Sherborn, a proclamation. Whereas Nora Barraford has reached the age of 100 years. And whereas this symbolizes a special achievement in her life for her family and the town of Sherborn. Whereas Nora Barrowford has demonstrated her ability to contribute to the citizenry of Sherborn and to make a difference in our community. Now therefore, we, the selectmen of the town of Sherborn, on behalf of all its citizens, extends our warmest congratulations and best wishes on this occasion of her 100th birthday on October 5, 2013. In witness thereof, we have caused the seal of this town to be affixed to this proclamation on this 28th day of September in the year 2013. And it's signed Peter Caruso, Paul Durensis, and Michael Giammo.
Well done, Paul.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's congratulations. We have a policy that we don't sing up here, so happy birthday.
Move to approve the proclamation.
Second.
Oh, great. All in favor? Excellent. Well done.
She sings?
Diane would sing.
No, we have a policy. No singing, especially from Diane.
You're
No
really
singing.
pushing it.
Boy, Chief, you're relentless. I've heard that from criminals, too. You're relentless. That's exciting. Speaking of seniors and elders, I'm the guest person tomorrow at the Council on Aging, and since we have a moment, I just soon promote that. It's coffee and food of some sort, so if anybody wants to come and speak their mind, ask their questions or whatever, and I might do a little something, it could be interesting. And it's a great little event, so I hope folks want to come. Please come.
Do you sing too?
No, I don't sing. I do a little dancing on my feet, though, depending on the questions, you know. I know you guys do it periodically. It's my turn, so I'm looking forward to it. Okay, want to talk about appointments, David? Shall we go right there?
Sure.
Since we're moving along.
Sure. As you know, we've been trying to clean up the boards and committees and fill the vacant seats. These are all uncontested appointments. Do you want me to just read down through the list, or how do you want to do it?
I think if you read the list and then you want to defer to my fellow selectmen here if you want to do them individually or as a group after he's read the list. I think
Okay.
we last did them individually by
Okay.
committee or grouping.
So just to make sure we're looking at the agenda sheet, right?
Okay.
Okay. So, building inspector, this would be a backup appointment because Walter's most recent backup is not able to be a backup anymore.
Yeah.
So, I met Michael Giampetro the other day, and he's a building inspector in Millis, and he appeared very qualified to me to fill that position. So, Walter was recommending that we appoint him as Walter's backup to cover an emergency situation, or if Walter is out of town or vacation, that kind of thing.
And there's no
something comes up.
compensation unless he serves as the backup role, right?
Right,
And you provided us his resume, looks highly qualified. So
right.
Why don't we do them as we go along then? So I'd welcome,
Appoint.
second?
Well, I had a question.
Sure.
Just, what does the backup role entail? Does he actually keep office hours here, or would people have to
No.
go to Millis to find him? How does that work?
No, it would be completely on Walter's beck and call. So if Walter was going on vacation, this person would be on call if we had something that comes up and required instant attention. It could be, Walter could be out of town and there could be some sort of disaster come through and we need building inspection
It's
services.
like backup for disasters. It's not backup for somebody who's waiting on a permit and Walter isn't around, or?
No. I don't think that's ever been the,
We may find some logistical, I think your questions are well-founded. We
Right,
may
right.
see some logistical issues where Walter may try to go be doing something else and call this Jen in for doing
Yeah,
something.
because I wonder if what we really need is an assistant building inspector for those times, even if it's not a salaried position, even if it's an on-call
Right.
position.
right, I mean, we could hold on that and bring them both in and talk to them.
I'm happy to
but-
approve a backup, but I think we got to
Yeah.
be thinking about, logistically, how we don't slow things down if Walter's on vacation or,
Right.
something unfortunate happens to him.
Right, so something more that would provide more continuity. of having the person in a more active
Well,
role.
they'd be able to do things proactive or deal with building projects. Somebody's trying to get a deck installed and they need a building permit and.
Okay, so I'll talk to Walter and try to straighten out exactly what role it is, and then try to get him into that role.
Yeah.
I mean, we can
But we
define
can-
the role as we want it after.
But we
he's-
can still
I think we
appoint
can
him.
appoint
Yeah.
him at this
Yeah,
point.
so it's been moved, second.
Second.
All those in favor? Great. Next one, David.
The next one is Elderly and Disabled Taxation Committee. It's an appointment of Rosemary Sorter for a term expiring June 15th, 2014.
I'll make the motion to appoint
Are
Rosemary.
you okay with the
Sorter.
name?
What?
Are you okay with the name?
I was gonna make a comment on
Yeah,
that, but I
I
thought I would
think-
first put a motion on the floor, and then I would. The problem with this committee is that it sounds like that it's made up of elderly and disabled people. And disabled is not a word that we use frequently anymore, and elderly is not a word that we use frequently anymore. And it's not really a committee of elderly and the disabled, it's a,
Senior Taxation Committee, Paul?
well, it's a committee looking to provide tax
Exemption.
assistance
Tax
to-
relief?
to citizens in need. So
So
I don't have I can find out what my other towns do for a name for this committee, but
All right.
I'm a little uncomfortable with this
We'll
name.
run the linguistic side of things. Is this arise out of a statute or an ordinance a bylaw that might direct what it's supposed to be called, or are we free to change? I'm happy to change it, but we ought to.
So we could
Let's take it under,
take
take the
a,
name under advisement.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think it needs to be modernized a little bit.
I think we're all on the same page. But, so it's been moved, second?
Second.
All in favor for Rosemary Sorter? Great. And so maybe you'll look into that a little, David? Come back to us. Great. What's up next?
Local Emergency Planning Committee. This would be an appointment of our new fire chief, Tim Morrissey, for a term expiring June 15th, 2014. And this is basically replacing our previous fire chief, Neil McPherson, in that role.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Great.
The next one is the Right to Know Officer, and this would be our new fire chief, Tim Morrissey, term expiring 6/15/2016. And this is the same instance. It's filling the position from that the previous chief held, Neil McPherson. And the Right to Know, which I was enlightened by, has something to do with environmental law. And it's the principle that the individual has the right to know the chemicals to which they may be exposed in their daily living. So I don't know if Tim wanted to speak a little more on that, if you had questions about that role.
I'm wondering,
but-
do we even have any industries that would be subject to right to know in Sherborn?
We just have the power substation down on Western, on the Framingham line. That's
So that's it?
it.
Okay.
So that's the role of this person.
Yes, Elliot.
We have a freight train that comes through Sherborn every night at 11:45. And you read the cars as they go by, and there's some pretty deadly stuff that is coming through here. Not just little canisters, 100-ton tank cars, and many of them. And I think that the town of Sherborn should look into some of this crap that's coming through and just see if there's anything that should be scrutinized. I notice that the train's coming through at about 15 miles per hour. You wish they'd hurry up. On the other hand, when you see the crap that they're carrying, you're kind of glad that that's only as fast as they're coming.
Understood.
So,
Great, thank you.
Does the local emergency planning committee, which is your other
We
committee?
have a plan with CSX, the freight hauler. We've had that for a number of years. They keep it up to date with, for their planning with the variety of communities they go through, whether it's Framingham down to Medfield. et cetera. The problem with that, of course, is just like our main roads at 27 and 16, that product changes depending on the time of each trip. They'll have a different product on board. It may be lumber, it may be dry goods, it may be hazardous materials. It all depends on their shipping needs. And it's very difficult from a minute perspective to be able to control that, if they have a right to ship their product lawfully. But we do have a plan with them. We do have, in the state, they also file on the state side, so we are aware of that material.
Just to add to what he said, the Congress of the United States considers all rail travel to be interstate commerce and has regulated it and has created a federal board that regulates railroads. There is no local control, no local say on the operation of railroads. If anybody has an issue about a railroad or a railroad operation or cars that are being carried by a railroad, they have to go to Washington to the Surface Transportation Board. So
There are two 200-ton tank cars on this train usually of carbon dioxide. And while carbon dioxide I feel is fairly harmless, you dump 200 tons of it in the valley and we'll all be suffocated in a few minutes. So just mention it.
Thank you. Anything else,
What
Paul,
is
on
our-
that?
Well, maybe something our congressperson can do something about.
Our new congressman.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, there's an election that's coming up on Tuesday, a preliminary election here in Sherborn. Isn't it the 15th?
15.
Yes, so that's next Tuesday. There'll be election here.
I think it's 2 Tuesdays away.
It is 2 Tuesdays.
A week from Tuesday. That's right, this is the 3rd.
Third,
Yes. So 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from Tuesday, from last Tuesday, or 1 week from next Tuesday.
You got it, Paul. Good job.
We'll get there.
October 15th.
Yes, the
Just watch for Paul and show up a week later and you'll be able to vote.
What we can do locally is what has been described by the fire chief. We can react to spills. If a railroad car spills, it's very much dependent upon the local community and the state government to respond to that. So we are limited by law just to reacting to what happens. We can't prevent the cars from coming through.
But do we know, are we able to know of what's coming before it's coming? And just in case, we want to be a little more alert?
CSX is pretty, they're very forthright.
Yeah.
They have good relationships with public safety, so if you needed to know what was on the train, they'd let you know.
So,
After it kills you.
okay, so did we need to do a motion and second and vote on this one, right?
On the right to know
Move to
officer?
approve.
Right to know, right?
So
Yep.
moved.
Yep, second,
Second.
all in favor? Great. Okay. MBTA Advisory Board, David, did you
We're
find out a little more about that?
No, we're just going to pass over that
Pass
until I
on
can
that.
get more information.
Great.
For traffic safety, appointing Kristen Buckler and Susan Tyler.
Mhm.
Those terms expiring 6/15/2014.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Great.
West Suburban Health Group. This is the group that the town participates in. It's basically a coalition of municipalities that are grouped together to purchase health insurance. Right now, the treasurer is the West Suburban representative, and this would be appointing 2 alternates to attend meetings, and in his absence would be voting on items. And it would appoint me as the town administrator and Ruth Hohenschow as the town accountant to be alternates for that committee, with terms expiring 6/15/2015.
So moved.
2014, right? Or
I meant 2015, so that it would expire at the same time with
Okay,
the
15,
the
got it.
existing seat.
Very good.
So moved.
So moved, second?
I just had a question. We're appointing the positions, so if any of those positions were to change, it's the treasurer, accountant, town administrator, or it's the individuals?
Well, right now, it's the individuals,
Okay.
the named
Yeah.
individuals.
So it's David Williams and it's Ruth Hohenschlag.
Yeah,
Okay,
because it
so
says
moved and
here,
seconded,
just
yeah.
says here the positions.
Yep.
Yeah, I put the positions because I couldn't fit both names on one line. Yeah.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor? Great. Next up, David?
Election worker, this is the out-of-town election worker that was discussed
Yep.
previously.
Yep.
Robert Whitman of Millis, one-year appointment as of 9/1/2013, and this will add him to the list that was already approved
Okay,
a month or so ago.
So moved.
Second.
all in favor? Great. And you're holding off on the Health Insurance Advisory Committee? It's on this other list, but it's not on that list.
The Health Insurance Advisory Committee, I was not going to hold off on, but we might as well, and discuss that with
It's just-
the privacy at the same time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll pick up on that, great.
Yeah.
All right, so that's that part of the agenda, and now we might as well get into our, while we're still waiting, right, Kitty? And we're happy to wait because it's worth the wait, I'm sure. We'll go to the committees to be considered for sunsetting, okay?
You might want to wait on that one in case people on those committees happen to want to be here. That was scheduled for 7:10.
Okay,
This is 6:45.
yeah, we're moving along here.
I also would say that, like I said before, no committee should be abolished until we've had an opportunity to tell the committee and have them have a chance to come in. So I think I would envision this as a preliminary discussion about which committees we want to go forward and get them to come in, rather than today trying to sunset them, or
No, this-
your intent to sunset them,
No, this was
This
each of
is
these
the
committees
follow-up.
were invited to attend tonight.
or invited to
Yeah,
attend tonight?
each committee was contacted to attend this evening about this
So
discussion.
Paul's point is it's not 7:10, and
Right.
maybe we should wait until 7:10.
So if you
Right.
just want to talk
Unless
in
they're
general
here.
terms without dealing with the specific committees, just to describe exactly how we got here, David?
And talk slowly.
Yes.
That's
Rather than taking a recess, I'm happy to do
20
a
minutes,
recess. Yeah. You may have to take a
I
recess.
mean, we can take up the Town Campus Extension Committee, because Nancy's here.
Comfortable with that?
And we can start with that one. That was one, shortly after I started, that we needed to talk about the West Campus. And we got together, and I believe at the time, we voted to move them under the town administrator, so they would be town administrator appointments. And the committee still has functioned ever since then. So that was my recollection. If Nancy wants to come up and speak about the committee itself, that would be great.
We did meet this week to discuss the invitation to come, and the rest of the committee was unable to attend. But we discussed the question of sunsetting, and this incredible group of committed people felt that it's too soon to do that, and are willing to serve. The property next door was a major investment, and although we have made great progress in making it part of the campus, we don't feel that our charge has been completed. It may seem slow, but with no budget, we have to depend on volunteers as well as depending on the weather in order to move forward. We try to impact Ed as little as possible, as he always lets me know when he has to spend a nickel in time or resources on the parcel. So I try to have a hole dug or a rock moved when his men and equipment are already necessarily on the campus. It's important to have people for whom the condition of this parcel is a focus, someone who's paying attention, or things get missed, as was demonstrated this spring when the mowing was inadvertently omitted from the town contract. Then you also need volunteers to fill the voids. A committee from various walks of life broadens the circle of people that can be brought in to help. The number of people who have given of their time, talents, and resources for the ongoing improvement of this parcel is amazing. And there are still those who have offered and not yet been tapped. There are some significant projects not finished. The one that will have the most impact on both sides of the campus is the library. We worked closely with their building committee to address some of the site constraints, especially regarding their parking requirements as a condition of their grant versus the needs of Town Hall and the rest of the campus. Jim Murphy, now a member of our group as liaison to the library, was instrumental in navigating the sometimes challenging waters between the various interests to ultimately resolve the differences and facilitate a plan that could be embraced by both groups as well as the planning board. He feels this committee is important to their process. As we move forward, it is in the best interest of the town to have a committee in place to champion these issues and others as they relate to the parcel known as the campus extension. Therefore, we would respectfully request that you sanction this committee to continue its work on behalf of the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can-
That's all good.
Can you clarify that, didn't we take care of this one time before?
We did when Tom was here and we were late for reappointments. You had brought before the committee, having us move forward as a task force and even appointed Jim Murphy to fill.
So the committee was appointed and has continued its work without being a Board of Selectmen appointed
So it's a
committee.
task force advising the town administrator, essentially? Is what you're operating under? I just don't recall what we did.
That's what David had proposed, and we really didn't care what you called us as long as we are functioning and
I mean,
under
it
your
was with a
auspices.
different board, that's what we were doing at the time.
Right.
So I just figured while we were talking about it, again, bringing,
So there's this task force that exists that used to be this town campus extension committee. Is that is that what I'm trying to I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand here.
right, they've continued to function as the Town Campus Extension Committee, continued to do their work, but they were not appointed by the Board of Selectmen, they were just basically appointed by the town administrator.
You had said that we would continue without appointment because of the way the bylaw states that you continue in the position, but we were short members because the liaison from the library had left the committee and so forth. And so David proposed, when Tom was here, that he do it in this manner, and it was accepted.
So is it safer to say we just need not take any action of appointment for this committee as opposed to sunsetting it?
I think what he's saying is that as they were originally formed as a Selectmen's committee reporting to us, and then one of the lessons of the Collins Institute was that these often were functions of the town administrator, and by having them report to us, that left out the town administrator, and it was poor structure.
Right.
So the better way to go was to have him create the committee. So I think we wanted to make sure that volunteers could continue to volunteer. We love volunteers. It's one of the great things about this town, is that we have so many capable volunteers. So we didn't want to turn away a volunteer. But the idea was that it morphed into the town administrator committee. So I think we need to sunset it as a
Board of
selectmen's
Selectmen
committee
Right.
and have it be fully a town administrator committee. I think that's what the proposal.
Well, it would continue as it is right now,
But we would answer to you, and I would assume that you would
which we,
Report to us.
choose before.
Yeah,
which we have been.
So what's the charge, David? I still don't know what, other than what I just heard, I don't know anything about what this committee does. I know we've got a piece of property there.
I think that's where it started
So is
with
there
and
a
what to
plan-
do with
Is there a
it.
plan? Is there a physical plan for that? Is there a
Right, the need
economic
for,
plan for that?
the need for that committee would be that they would have to at least stick around until it's decided what that property is going to be used for, whether it's expanding the parking lot or doing something with parking around the police department. I know they need to stay on until at least after the library renovation because they've had input to the whole campus. So,
Our original charge was to try to incorporate that into the campus, so you had a sense of it being an integral part of this whole unit here, rather than, through time, you've seen us remove some of the screening that separated the two parcels and get some of the hazards and things out of there, do some plantings, and we have plans for some benches and things like that going in. So in
Do
getting.
we have a planner or a landscape architect or somebody who's, thought about integrating those properties? I mean, I know it was a opportunistic acquisition at the time.
Well, the committee has a plan of expanding the parking lot portion.
That's something
to
town
provide
meetings
more
approved, or?
No, to provide more spaces. I mean, they would have to get money appropriated.
That's part of the
for it.
library design.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to Monday morning quarterback. It just
Right.
seems that we've got an asset that, we can nibble away at it for different purposes, or we can have some kind of a comprehensive plan that looks at that as part of the entire campus and decides for the long term what it's going to be used for. And I'm not faulting
Right.
somebody for, arranging with the library to use part of it for parking, but do we know
Right.
that that's the best use of it, or that it doesn't compromise some other future use? That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the charge of the committee, to find out what the purpose of that property would be.
Actually, the reuse committee was the committee that studied what could be done over there and what couldn't be done. And the recommendation at that time was that the property be incorporated as part of the campus and not committed to anything that was going to preclude what down the road the town might decide to do with it. There are a lot of options, and it also is our insurance policy for our septic and our well, because the well is right on that line, and it would be able to be used in an equation for replacing or expanding our septic system. But there have been a lot of proposals for building, and we ran into some difficulty with new buildings because of the constraints as far as water table and all of that. So right now, there are all kinds of possibilities out there, but we're waiting for the town to see what rises to the top as the most need or the most importance. And in the meantime, just trying to make it feel like part of the green here.
So it's really part of the town buildings and grounds.
Well, I think
Function,
that was the
which
original thinking, that the
rolls
facilities
your
were
way.
supposed to be under the town administrator, and that this was a decision about the facilities.
Yeah.
And we're trying very hard not to do anything that will preclude any use that's determined down.
So if we officially sunset this committee under the Board of Selectmen and officially make sure it remains in existence, but reporting to the town administrator, does your committee have objections to that approach?
Well, I didn't specifically discuss that with him, but at the time that the action was taken, everyone was comfortable with
The new
David's
structure.
appointment in the new structure, so.
So I'm good. Anybody want to
I
move
just,
in that
I'm
direction?
still
You're-
confused by
you're
what the
confused?
purpose of this committee is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll defer to what the
Well,
rest of the board thinks, or what's been done before, but it seems to me we've got a committee for a single piece of property that's part of a campus, that's then negotiating with a committee for a second piece of property, which is also part of the campus. In the middle, we've got the town hall and the police station. David's got at least some kind of custodial responsibility for the entire campus as our town administrator. But I'm confused by why we've got the various committees, what they do, how they relate to the planning board and other bodies in our town that are supposedly charged with the orderly planning of land and the town's property.
Well, my 2 cents is that when you have volunteers who are committed and dedicated and want to help, that's what this town is all about. And if they want to do it, then by God, don't let them get away. That sums up my view perfectly. And I know, and I've seen them put in a lot of time, carrying stuff, moving stuff, digging stuff, manual labor, all kinds of things. It would be nice to have engineers and landscapers and all that kind of stuff looking at this thing globally, but A, that costs money, and B, we did have a reuse committee. The reuse committee did look at it, and we decided to bank it for the time being. And while it's banked, put aside for future use, it still needs to be maintained. And so the idea was, here was a group of volunteers who were willing to do the work to help integrate this parcel into another parcel. And I'm just so grateful for all that they've done. Why would we not want them to continue to do that?
I didn't say I didn't want them to, I'm just confused at the purpose of the board. I appreciate that there's volunteers willing to put their sweat equity into improving their property. I think that's great.
I think in the setup that if the board voted to sunset the committee and they're out there under the town administrator, the board could charge me with delivering back options, working with that committee to give what other options have been looked at already. I mean, we could report back so you could see what other,
Yeah, I mean, the
Things
impression I'm
can-
getting from Paul is it's really it's almost like a gardening or you know, I don't want to say custodial, but it's a lawn care and garden care and removing trees and telling people where to move rocks kind of function.
What I get out of what Nancy described, which I didn't appreciate, is that there's a group of people paying attention to this
We're actually doing the
$500,000,
work.
and they're doing a fair amount
Yeah.
of the sweat.
We do
That's
some of
a
it,
whole
and
different thing than
That-
the
that-
plan. But
we
I still
do
think
some
we
of
need-
it, and we get other people to do
Yeah.
some of it, and we try to stay on top of things that fall by the wayside that we have to rely on our own highway people to do.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's good, but I think we still need a separate and apart from this, we need to have some type of a coordinated plan. Not
so.
to,
We're not gonna boil
it's
it-
either
deal
within the
with that
charge.
tonight, yeah.
Right, it's either
Yeah.
within the charge of this committee or it's within some other auspices, but it's,
Right. Right.
it's as important as the short-term stuff.
We've sort of been on hold waiting for what the library thing plays out to be, because they're going to impact the campus when the ultimate plan comes through. And I know they've been working with planning board. We went before the planning board with them last year about how we wanted to see anything that was going to impact the parcel next door. So that was, we sort of all put our heads together and came up with something that wasn't going to be a big impact on that, but was going to do some relief here when the requirement for the number of spaces of parking and so forth kicked in.
Yeah, I think it's great that all the properties have advocates. I just hope there's some overarching coordination and some master.
Well,
plan.
that's the planning board right now, I think.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah, so I guess I take a motion to officially sunset this as a Board of Selectmen committee and reconfigure it as a committee,
task force,
allow
is
it to
what you said.
remain as a committee or task force, reporting to the town administrator.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Great, thanks, Nancy. It's always a
Thanks,
pleasure.
the town administrator can form
Yeah.
a task force, work group, whatever you want to call
Have
it.
at it.
Yeah.
Have at it. All right, I think we can go back to a section of our agenda there, Kitty. I think we have an unusual guest here, and welcome guest.
Joey is shaking in his boots.
Oh, he shouldn't be. Look at all those badges, holy smokes.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive. First of all, our committee and the residents of Woodhaven wish to acknowledge the hard work that Joey Swan has done for his Eagle Scout project. He presented a plan for a bocce court last spring. He contacted all the parties that might have oversight on his project. It is being shown by,
Oh, good, good. Well, for
Rick
folks in
here.
the audience here,
yeah,
you'd rather look at this than me, trust me.
Conservation Board of Health. He individually raised the money to construct the court and then did the physical labor with friends and family to complete it. I understand that Dover has a league, so watch out, Dover. Sherborn is on the learning curve now. May I introduce Joey and publicly acknowledge the work he's done. Thank you so much.
I'm very good to be an Eagle Scout, so this is terrific. I'm proud of you. And this is wonderful work.
We don't have a proclamation for him?
No, we don't. Maybe we should.
Thank you,
Yeah, we'll
Joey.
once
I know
again.
it's been a rough
It's
evening.
over there.
And do you have anything you'd like to say?
I guess just that I put a lot of work into this and had a lot of support and help from a ton of people, and I'm really, really thankful of everybody who's been with me on this. It's been like tons of people who have helped out a lot, so really thank you to everybody who's helped.
So we all have to get out there and start practicing.
There you go, yeah.
And so I just also want to acknowledge the active Boy Scout group that we do have in town and all the civic projects they do for us, the town should be very grateful.
Yes.
And I'm out of your hair now, Jim. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, and I appreciate your patience.
Oh, this is well worth the wait. Thank you, Joey. It's terrific. Should be proud. I hope your family's proud.
Thank you. Thank you for all you've done.
She mentioned the Scouts, Mike. Do you want to say any words of promotion about the Scouts?
I don't know what I can add to that, but I will tell you one thing. Joey, we ask Scouts, as you know, Scouts have to do an Eagle project prior to receiving their badge. And it has to be done by a certain time. And I asked Joey, okay, have you any ideas what you'd like to do? And immediately he advised us that he wanted to do something for the senior citizens at Woodhaven. So he was intent on doing this project. And I will say it is a major project for what he actually accomplished based on the picture you have there. So I think, and in effect, he has to bring in other scouts, and it's really a leadership portion. I will add also that he took the time to contact many companies and was able to get tons of donations to get this done. Excellent. With the assistance of the COA, I might add. Okay, the COA was very upfront on this project. But I think I just want to tell everybody that he put in mucho hours. And so he's it'll count as his vehicle project, and we'll move on from there. When would you be 18?
November 19th.
Oh, November 19th. You did it.
Got it done in time. Excellent. Terrific. So that would qualify him to be named as an Eagle Scout, and that
Well,
celebration
plus everything
would
else
happen.
that's in the requirements,
Yeah.
but this is the major.
This is the big
He
piece.
does have to get a project done. And I would say it was a major project.
And in the springtime is when the Eagle Scouts are named, and there's
I'm not sure
something.
when he's going to have
Okay.
his Eagle.
We'll keep our eyes open for that, and
Yeah.
for his success. That's great. Thank you very much again. All right, so I guess that brings us on to the next part of the agenda. It's 7:10 now. We can go back to Ambulance Usage Committee, David, I think
Yeah,
is next on
The
the
next two committees were recommended to be sunset by the previous fire chief, Neil McPherson.
list. Okay,
And for the reason that we have a full-time fire chief to make these decisions now.
Yep.
And basically, it would be the same thing, similar to the Campus Extension Committee, that the fire chief, if he felt that there was a need to continue this kind of group, he could form it within his own, be an advisory group to him. So, hi, Neil.
Neil. Nice to see you, Neil.
See you as well.
Look at you in your street clothes.
Exactly. Just high level, the ambulance usage committee, I think there was a time and place where this committee was needed. Over the years, the process has evolved. Before, we didn't have technology, we didn't have an ambulance billing company, so there was a lot of work associated with these changes. So this committee was there to support the fire chief. The second part of that is I believe that there was a thought that having residents on a committee who could make determinations and give guidance about the direction of ambulance billing was important. Over the years, though, we've evolved, and we now have a public hearing, so that opportunity still exists. So certainly my recommendation is, as you have a full-time chief, we have great access to data in terms of surrounding towns, in terms of Medicare rates, that if you want to continue this, for history's sake, that's one thing, but practically speaking, wonderful group of people, you could do it much more efficiently with a full-time fire chief who has the time to commit to that and the information and deals with it on an
And the
ongoing
expertise,
basis.
yeah, all that. Yep. That's great.
At the end of the day, we set the rates, don't we?
The fire chief typically will make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. You have to approve the rates, and that's been done in this town via a public hearing.
So we have a process where we have expertise of our old and new chiefs. It comes before the board. Every year that it's come before the board, I've asked a lot of questions about it. and the public's had a chance to participate. Longer term, there's this move afoot on the state level to try and do this third-party billing situation where insurance companies will not pay the town anymore. They'll pay the resident who's supposed to reimburse the provider in order to try and control costs. And then there was another move afoot to have the rates set statewide and not locally. And on the state level, we've been fighting those and trying to keep local control over rates. It does cause some inequality in different areas of the state where different rates are charged. But by and large, it's worked. And at the end of the day, the system's been fair to everybody. So I think it will continue. This change makes sense, so I would support it.
All right, any thoughts, discussion? Okay, I'll take a motion to sunset, and we want to sunset both of these at the same time, or?
Well, we
You
didn't
wanna
discuss the other one, but
Okay, we got
I'd be
something on
happy
that?
to. I should have started by saying I think all the committee members should be thanked for their service, as they have been
Absolutely.
dedicated committee members for years. When it comes to the dry hydrant committee, I believe this committee was formed years ago when we had started the dry hydrant program. And again, at that point in time, you didn't have the same resources or professional fire chief within the town of Sherborn. Now that you have a professional fire chief, the majority of that project has been commenced, and now it's really a maintenance and for new developments. Obviously, I think it's a more efficient process to have the fire chief handle that. And frankly, the fire chief has handled that for a period of time with very little input from this committee. So resources are there if the chief needs it, and I would think it would be a more streamlined approach to have the chief just make these decisions.
Great. Any other discussion?
Well, I think you ought to ask if there's anybody here who wants to preserve any of those two committees.
Anybody? No?
How was the hydrants working?
Couldn't tell you.
Do you have any problems?
All right, then since there's nobody in opposition, I move that the two committees be sunsetted and
Second.
duties be transferred to the fire chief of the town of Sherborn.
Great. All in favor? It's been moved and seconded. Great. All right.
Thank you.
Neil. Nice to see you. Don't be a stranger.
Pleasure.
Okay, up next. And we'll have some folks at the table, I suspect. Yes.
the next two or three committees that we were recommending for sunsetting came out of the thought of forming a public safety committee. So I think we had talked, I made a recommendation last week that we'd be forming a public safety committee and charging it with some of the things that these committees were charged with, and one of them being the Pine Hill Access Road.
Yep.
So that's where that originated from.
Okay. And I see we have some folks that have something to say. We have the Superintendent of Schools, Stephen Bliss, and we have the Chairman of Pine Hill School Committee, Frank S.
Thank you. I was in contact with all the members of the committee, and from what I received back, I'm not against the sunsetting of the Pine Hill Access Road Committee as it is now constituted. Some of the members have indicated they have done their duty and would not like to continue. I would like to thank all the people at this time, though. It's Ann Beckerbrady, John Dowse, David Colleen, Michael Schumacher, and Tom Shea. They worked hard for several years to help bring this as far as it's come. Going forward, there's a need for vigilance and a champion to ensure that a safe, working second access becomes a reality. And I share the following. The recent work on the emergency Pine Hill Road project is impressive. But without an individual or a group with a focus on this project, it sort of got to a slow start. It's going great now, though. There's a need for a continued focus as we move from this first step of a cleared path for emergency vehicles only to a road that relieves the everyday hazards and the nearly impassable conditions that we see on many winter days. Starting now, there should be a champion to work with those in charge to get the state earmarked funds for this project released. The Board of Selectmen have stressed that they work closely with the Secretary of Transportation and the Governor on projects that impact Sherborn. We urge all members of the Board of Selectmen, individually and collectively, to continually initiate contact with the appropriate state officials to gain release of these funds. If we wait until the next election cycle passes, we might not have the same ear that we have now. Our opportunity to get the funds may be lost. So looking forward optimistically, when the funds are released, we think that the Board of Selectmen should constitute a group to shepherd the process to a completion. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Steve?
I just wanted to, again, thank the Board of Selectmen and Mr. Hess for their diligence in ensuring a first step in clearing the emergency access road in the annual town meeting appropriation from the last town meeting. We did feel as if, Mr. Hess and I, that we wanted to go on record just saying that a more permanent roadway is really the desired outcome for safe ingress and egress from the campus for not only our faculty, staff, students, but in fact for all townspeople within the town of Sherborn who may have need to access, be it on a day-to-day basis or an emergency event, to be able to safely access the Pine Hill campus. Would like to thank our emergency responders, Chief Morrissey moving forward, and certainly Chief Thompson as well for their diligence and attention to this project as well.
Great. Thoughts or questions?
The committee.
Yep, you moved, second?
Yeah, just, I want to thank Frank for all the work that you've done to bring us to this point. This board, all of us are committed to the safety of our children and our visitors to our school and our parents. The road that's being built now will help that goal. But there are funds that have been appropriated. $1 million has been appropriated, but it's borrowed funds. The governor's position is that he needs more revenues to support transportation projects. He was looking for $2 billion. He got what he thought was $800 million. He's just repealed the software tax, which was $165 million. So there isn't enough money now to fund transportation projects. He's holding back $50 million, $100 million of Chapter 90 funds, which we're hoping to get him to release. Those are our annual funds. There's a whole list of projects, of which the Pine Hill Road one is one, that has been earmarked for future borrowings. But because we can't get the road funds released, these earmarked things are further back in the priorities. So for that reason, we are going ahead with this temporary road. That's the construction that's going on now. And again, that's because we're committed to the same things that you all are committed to, which is our children, our teachers, our parents, and our visitors to that school.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, great. So we have a motion. I second the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor? Sunsetting the committee? Great.
And Mr. Crusoe,
Thanks, and great to see
if I
you.
may, Mr. Crusoe, we had a fairly serious accident the other day on Farm Street, immediately following dismissal at the region. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to just acknowledge the first responders. We have many reasons to be thankful in Sherborn for all that we have, and in particular for our first responders. It was pretty amazing to see the outpouring of support. We had a head-on collision that we thought initially could have involved potentially parents, maybe even students, and thankfully that was not the case. Nevertheless, we want to just thank and take a moment to reflect on all that we have for which to be thankful.
Great, thanks for
Thank
that.
you.
We're off to a good school year, aren't we?
We're off to a great school
Yeah,
year.
all right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Up next, we have Communications Committee. And go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to reiterate that this was, the thought of melding the role of the Communications Committee into this larger public safety purpose was brought to me by several individuals. So
Right.
that's why I made that recommendation.
Right.
To sunset that committee.
And Jim, do you want to come up and chat with us, please?
So David, on this larger public safety committee, it's going to envelop other committees? Is that your idea, or is it going to have its own separate charge?
Not envelop the other committees, but it would have its own charge that would be broad enough that these types of issues, like certain committees that have been set up for individual intersections, could go to this public safety committee.
I mean, I'm just going back to the Pine Hill Road Committee, I'd be concerned with that ending up in a public safety committee, because I think, if there needs to be somebody to follow through on that,
Right.
it's going to get lost as one charge in a larger committee. I would think that's probably something you're going to deal with directly.
Right. Well, Ed and I couldn't have gotten on the same page to get it off the ground without Frank's institutional knowledge of the background and where the papers were and who was originally spoken to. That's what, just because this committee is sunset, we can't have Frank walk away. He still needs to be an advisor to us because he has information and he knows about this funding of what his picture of what should be done. So if that's what you're asking, then.
Yeah, I think I'm asking that if we're going to create an umbrella or a recharged, broader committee, that we at least figure out how to keep track of all the subsidiary projects. I mean, I'm not questioning the strategy. I'm not in favor of having special purpose committees one after another for all these. I think we need coordination, but I think you're the coordinator. I mean, I think that's the importance of that position.
Right.
My sense of a public safety committee may be a little different from the rest of the boards, but my sense is that basically the police chief, the fire chief, the CM&D director, and maybe the town administrator, maybe the emergency management director, if he's different, that to me is a public safety committee.
It's the same as my sense then.
Me too.
If a hurricane is about to hit here, there's now one Hurricane Karen, or Tropical Storm Karen that's forming. They say might be a threat to the mainland. If we need to have a public safety
You're bundling
addressed,
good news today, Paul.
if we have to have a committee,
Call my boat hauler.
we need people who are specialists in public safety, who can coordinate and can work together, coordinate their staff, that kind of thing. I don't envision a committee of 10 or 15 citizens sitting down and saying, gee, do we have too many fire trucks? Do we have too many police officers? Should we, whatever. That doesn't, I don't see what a, I don't see what what a public safety committee would be, other than our public safety officials meeting together in a coordinated way.
Well, there would be no point in forming a committee of us, because that's our job. We have to do that anyway. And the fire chief is, by job description, the emergency management director. So there's already an emergency management committee that these guys already serve on and deal with, on a regional basis too. The public safety committee that idea was brought up long before I was here. It was one of the first things that was mentioned to me about this concept of the public safety committee, so that some of these other smaller committees, special purpose committees, wouldn't have to be formed. So that's what I was told.
Yeah, which I think still encompasses the practice experts as the core group of that oversight public safety committee. I think that's where we're headed. We haven't really fleshed it out and put to paper precisely what we want to do, but that is where we're headed.
Right, but it's not for handling
We're not doing that tonight.
disaster or
Right,
something
right.
like that, because that's already in place, and that's always in place.
Right, but I see the chief shaking his head here, so I think we're on the same page. We just got to put down on that page where exactly we want to be and how we cover the groups that we think ought to be bundled into this, so that we don't have too many groups running around that we're not paying attention to just by human nature and lack of meeting time.
Right. It reduces redundancy, I think, and
Yeah.
makes our job more efficient and effective.
Yeah.
in the long run.
Yeah, and we have examples of that, so we can get, so that's certainly something for us to address in the future, but in the meantime, we're here talking about Communications Committee and whether we should sunset it or not. I think Jim has some thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Jim Campbell. I'm a longtime member of the town and actually a 14-year member of this committee, the Communications Committee. I believe we actually established or reinvigorated the committee when I was a selectman, when we found that we were building a new police station and there really was no expertise within the town on what to do about the communications, the console, where we're going to put the antenna, all that. So that really motivated the committee. From there, we went on and actually were the ones who established the internet in the town hall here, the local area network. We actually contracted for and got the first web page for the town of Sherborn, the website. Of course, it's gone on now and managed by other professional company. But in addition to that, over the years, we have also been very involved in cell tower RFPs and specifications. And I, besides myself on the committee, and my background is radio engineering and communications, we had an addition to the fire chief and the police chief and the town administrators, when they would elect to show, which was a problem over the years, frankly. They'd come and go, and yet this requirement seemed to come and go as well. But anyway, with regard to and then one other member at large on the committee that's been there a long time has been Captain Mark Roach from the Newton Fire Department, who is a town resident and also in his day job is in charge of all dispatch for fire and police, I believe, in the town of Newton. So he certainly was a subject matter in the area of how to organize and plan for a communications console and so forth. So there has been a technical expertise that has stayed with this committee over the years. And my concern about sunsetting it and putting it in a kind of mirroring its function under a public safety committee is that there's no assurance that any subject matter experts are going to be understood to be available by the town administrator, because we've had a turnover of town administrators heretofore, and I think that's a concern, that our committee has got a very narrow focus, but when we're needed, that narrow focus is needed in depth. For instance, for this most recent cell tower, we contracted for and led the study, RF propagation studies, to show what an antenna at that South Lake location would do for the town's communication, police and fire communications. And we also, knew what was needed to make sure that the town's equipment was included cost effectively in the cell tower construction. That was our forte, but in the process, of course, we've done other RFPs, like for the Brush Hill site and so forth. So we had that experience on writing those RFPs. So again, we don't write an RFP for a cell tower every day, nor do we do a new console. But my point being that the town administrator, if we're going to disband this committee, ought to know to want to reach out to citizens in the town to help them with the technical end of these issues. The last point I want to make then, so bottom line, I'm for the idea we just haven't had that much work over the years on a sustained basis to really justify taking up space in the town report, if nothing else. The other thing, I do think, though, that as you sunset a committee like this or the Pine Hill Road Access Committee, you ought to ask for a final report. I was on the Highway Garage Building Committee, and that committee was sunsetted, no final report. So there's got to be lessons learned. I know there were lessons learned from that experience, but, how do you find them now? So I think that's one thing to think about as you sunset any of these committees, considering asking the chair of the committee for a final report.
Well, I want to say what I've been saying all evening, which is that in my experience on this board, volunteers are the lifeblood of this community. We do not rely on hiring engineers willy-nilly and other subject matter experts. We have people in town, and they are willing to come forward and help us. They should be praised and welcomed and appreciated. And the work that they've done over the years, the Communications Committee and other committees and other volunteers, helps build our community. It helps save money for the town. And because our volunteers are committed to the town as opposed to hired experts from outside, they really care, and they put in countless hours. So if there are a group of radio engineers and other people of expertise that you've indicated, I would do everything I can to hold on to them and to have them available. And if that means giving them a title that of a committee that meets once a year, but when we need them, we have a list of people that we know where to find. But if we let them go, then when you get on the phone to ask them to come forward and do something, maybe they will, maybe they won't. If there's a way that we can maybe keep this committee but tuck it into the town administrator's function in a way, that way we would enhance the power of the town administrator, which is the goal that Collins told us to work on, but keep the good citizens who want to give time to the town. Thank God that there are people out there willing to do that.
I don't think anyone is trying to get rid of people or their expertise. It's just restructuring the way that it's held. I mean, when I'm not a communications expert, but when there's going to be a need, I'm going to be looking at our two guys here, the police chief and the fire chief, to be researching and try to get all the information needed to bring something to town meeting. They're going to rely on any professionals they know, which are town residents they may not exist in a selectman appointed body, but their expertise is still here, and their need for input to the town is just that they would be advising the professional staff on request as opposed to an appointment by the Board of Selectmen. So that's just the personal way that I see it set up.
I guess the way I would see it is until we form that public safety committee and what it's going to do and what we might bundle underneath it, including this communications challenge, I'm not necessarily, and because we've got a cell tower issue in play still, regardless of it being in litigation or not, there's still that need, and this group's done a lot of work on it. I will say that there does come a time, sometimes, when you have to rely on experts that you pay for above and beyond the experts who volunteer their services, and I think the town needs to get better at doing that sometimes, just to be sure we've made the right decision, not that we're second guessing or not appreciative of the input, but sometimes we gotta pony up and pay for people that do it for a living. So I guess I'm of the mind to sort of not necessarily jump forward too quickly on this, and/or, whether it's reporting to the town administrator or still kept the way it is right now. I can go either way on that, in that regard.
I would support David on this, and, with all full appreciation for Jim and his committee. I think Jim has even suggested that it probably makes sense to sunset this committee. I don't think there's anything that stops David from tapping people, whether it's Jim and his current committee members or others in the future, who know about something to a greater extent than he does, or either the chiefs do, if it's communications or whatever. We can decide, or he can decide as a professional, whether to go out to bid for a paid hire or whether we have enough expertise in town. But I think we've seen at least one example recently of a committee that was appointed and acted in a way that they thought was within their charge, and actually I think has set the town up for a whole lot of trouble. And I would rather see the people we pay to administer these things at least have the top hand on how this thing gets done. David, as well as our board, as well as the chiefs.
Well, how about, as a compromise then, sunsetting this committee but move it over to the town administrator as a communications task force, to the extent that, there are issues that are ongoing.
I think that's a great idea. I would hope David has, freedom to form task forces and elicit information from residents on a whole range of topics that we've got, questions about or could use help on. I think that's a great idea.
But remember, he's relatively new, and how would he know who are the communications experts?
Well, he's
and
not
what's
gonna know any more than anybody knows, but he's the one we've charged with going out to fill these committees too, Paul, so.
But that's why I mean, if you have a committee of people who are, I mean, 14 years, at least if sort of the committee, just like we did with the municipal campus committee, if we sunset it as a selectmen's committee and we make it into a town administrator task force committee, at least move them over
Under his wing, yeah.
under his wing for the, and if he ultimately decides that you need other experts or more experts, or he doesn't need the expertise, well, that's part of his administrative responsibilities. But short term, I just wouldn't want to discontinue them and tell them to go home.
Yeah, neither would I. So I like the compromise. Elliot has one thing to say, it sounds like.
I just say that I think we should keep this committee as they are. We have this group of experts who are willing to work for nothing. And this radio communications, I've studied radio, and this isn't anything that anybody can just come out of high school and get on a committee and know what it's all about. And they have to know how to coordinate with various vendors, et cetera, down the line. I think this committee should stay, and of course, they will be answering to the administrator. But I think this committee should be kept solid as long as they're willing to be there.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's a 4-0 vote on that.
Yeah. So I'll take a motion, Paul.
I move that we sunset the committee as a selectmen's committee, but move the people over to the jurisdiction of the town administrator as a communications task force.
I second that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor? Great. Good compromise, Jim? All right. Terrific. Okay. We're flexible. Thanks, Paul. Yep. Yes, sir.
The next committee was the Wildlife Management Committee.
Yep.
This was one that was charged with the management plan, and it was supposed to be back by July 1.
Yep.
And we started working on all the committees. They didn't have a plan to present at the time, so I put them on the list to be sunset, and I know that there's still a need for a wildlife management plan, so I thought that it would be charge town staff with bringing back a plan that the Board of Selectmen would then have public hearings or whatever on, as opposed to the committee.
Do we not have a Public Lands Committee or another committee that deals with that subject?
I mean, there's Conservation Commission, and then there's a Forestry Committee.
I'm wondering why this isn't within their charge, since it seems to only apply to public lands anyway.
Well, when I looked at wildlife, when I looked at the charge of the committee, I thought they were supposed to be bringing back a wildlife management plan. When I look at a wildlife management plan, that's something that is for the whole town. That's not only town lands, but for any land. So if somebody was having an issue with wildlife on private property, town property, property owned by forestry, property owned by conservation, those are all treated differently if there's a wildlife problem on them.
Yeah, our charge that we approved back in January of this year was to create a wildlife management plan for the town of Sherborn, in which plan the committee would identify public lands upon which to implement said management plan, and to report back to the selectmen by July 1st, 2013, at which time the committee would be disbanded unless otherwise determined by the selectmen. And I know that wildlife management is broad. One of the issues that I think just came up was I haven't seen any minutes or of meetings of this committee, so I'm not familiar with what they've been up to, but I see that we've got a bow hunting application, which I think is just a slight piece of it. Oh, great, please, yeah, have a seat. Yeah, we appoint people we don't even see, so sorry about that.
Hiding in the audience. Very good. So I'm David Kaplan, the chair of the Wildlife Management Committee. Scott Barnard is another man,
Scott.
and Chief Thompson is also on that committee as well. So we were formed with a fairly broad mandate charter. The original focus was to develop and adopt a deer hunting plan based on the 2010 vote of the Selectmen to establish a plan to allow deer hunting on public lands.
Yeah.
The charter of the committee is more encompassing to include wildlife. So some of the, I guess, distraction of the meetings moving in the direction of a deer hunting plan were the public input of beaver issues. That seems to be one of the more significant problems that residents are facing. We met 4 times. We developed I think what you probably have there,
Yeah, I didn't really.
a set of regulations and an application.
Yeah.
These are based on the plans currently in existence in Dover and Weston that have been in place for a couple of years and have been very successful. So it's really a synthesis of those existing plans. I believe we had a scheduled meeting July 22nd in front of the Board of Selectmen, but that was, we were canceled from that meeting. I think the remaining question for us is how to implement these regulations and the application process to go ahead with hunting on town lands.
Yeah, just a couple of things. The 2010 charge expired and was superseded by the latter charge, just for point of clarity. And so, but I would have expected something regarding bow hunting to come out of this on public lands from the full Wildlife Management Committee, or at least some process by which we've identified a problem and this happens to be the solution. Here, with all due respect, all I'm seeing is a solution, and I don't know about the problem yet. So, in my view, we have a bylaw about hunting. It doesn't touch on, it talks about firearm being, going off in town and so forth. It would seem to me that one of the avenues to achieve what I think some of the sportsmen in town are after might be looking in that direction, just not having really dealt with this quite yet, haven't studied it much, just seeing it for the first time today, where you guys wound up. So that's just some of my initial thoughts. But I think the other factor is that we are talking about possibly sunsetting the committee, but basically putting the onus onto the guy we pay as opposed to us that don't know a lot about this. So that's part of it. So I know, Paul, you.
Well, I was the proponent on the board of this committee, and the town properties that we are talking about are either under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission or under the jurisdiction of the Town Forest Committee. And neither of those committees went forward with any plans on their own.
Right.
So part of the genesis of this was to put in a room a representative of the Town Forest Committee, a representative of the Conservation Commission, and some people who knew something about hunting, and have them work something out. The issue is not an easy one. And in retrospect, asking people to do this in 6 months was probably quite optimistic.
Right.
If we didn't have the committee, the town administrator has essentially no jurisdiction. This is a Concom issue for Concom land. This is a town forest issue for town forest land. The beauty of the committee is that it puts everybody at the table talking. And there's been talking going on in this community about bow hunting for years, and it's never moved anywhere. And my sense is, if it ever is going to move anywhere, it has to start with people talking, the stakeholders. And so this committee includes the stakeholders. It includes hunters. It includes the guy who's written a number of citizen articles, the police chief, or maybe they were Board of Selectmen articles, but you had brought them forward.
Stole them from me, it's okay.
Okay, but they were well done. That's why we stole them. But address the issue of hunting. We have citizens who came forward, volunteering their time, saying, "Hey, there's been this what looked like impasse in the town for a long time," and they were willing to put their time and effort into it to try and solve this thing. So, I think that, and the work product that they've come up with, I think is a great step in the right direction. It takes what are successful programs in other communities and is trying to apply it here. Now remember, they're working within a legal system that already has the state giving licenses for hunting. The state sets the time when hunting can be done. So you have to get a state license, you have to be within the state period, you have to pay whatever you have to pay to the state. But what the state licenses say is you have to get permission of the property owner to do anything on the property. And who is the property owner? But ultimately the people of the town of Sherborn, either individually, the properties that we own ourselves, or collectively, the public lands. There has been no programs for wildlife on public lands.
Right, and so that's what we set out in the broader perspective. This is one element of it, if in fact there's a need, or the need is more, as I view it, more of a sporting nature than a need to solve a problem of deer ticks or whatever, or deer population, so please.
Sorry, there's another issue too, which is the Conservation Commission controls their lands. So if we were to open it as a Board of Selectmen or as a town, the hunting, I don't believe the Conservation Commission needs to let hunting take place on their property, do they?
Well, I think one of the charges early on was to identify the parcels of land, which would likely exclude the Concom land.
Okay,
unless it
so
was up to
that's
them.
one issue in terms of a
Yes.
Concom representative.
Yes.
The other is, I'm not sure, and Paul, you've got more experience here, but is the Forestry Committee actually, is that land in the care and custody of the Forestry Committee, or is that Selectmen land?
No, that's in the care and
Okay,
custody.
so then that would be the same thing
Yes.
for the Forestry Committee.
So you have two committees who, over the years, have not developed these plans. So the idea is to have a local permit system by which the property owner, which might be the Concom in one case, might be the Town Forest Committee in the other case, actually give someone a permit to be on their property to do this. Ultimately, the Concom has to buy into this, and ultimately, the Town Forest Committee has to buy into this. But in order to get there, they have to be at the table. They have to hear the issues from the perspective of all the stakeholders.
So
Well, I guess I'm asking the question of why it has to be both together, because I think that's a setup for no agreement at all. Which it sounds
It
like
doesn't have to
what we
be
came
all
out with.
together, but that's, if everybody is at the table.
Well, that begs the question, did your committee, which includes a Concom member, includes the town forestry,
It does.
voted on this thing and said, this is what we'd like to see?
That's
happen?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So everybody was okay with that?
Everybody voted in favor of those regulations and that application.
So have they gone back to the Conservation Commission with these regulations to see if the Concom will adopt them, or to the Forestry Committee?
Yeah, so I think part of the unknown for us has always been the process for which these regulations, these applications are ultimately approved and put into practice. We were appointed under the Selectmen, operating on, and did I understand correctly that the November
2010
2010 have been
expired.
superseded
That's
by?
correct, yeah.
They have, okay. So we were operating under the assumption that
They were still in force. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
there was that the selectmen had requested that a plan be developed, and we were developing that plan to put a practice into place, or put the pilot program into place.
I understand.
Yeah.
So are your expectations, I know that hunting season is coming up quickly, I'm sure your desire, and the question is your expectation to try to see something happen?
We would think it'd be a great idea to test a program even with a limited number of hunters.
Because I remember that's what the 2010 approach was trying to achieve, was a
It was a
limited
pilot.
test, a pilot program.
Exactly.
On a pilot parcel of land or whatever, or parcels.
That's right.
And has your committee identified parcels or a pilot program at this stage? This is if we had decided this is the right thing to do for the town going forward, this type of
Right.
application would apply.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. And whether, depending on the desire of the selectmen to implement this at a particular size, we would size it based on the applications to a specific number.
And I really didn't study this, and I try to read things carefully, but the approval process of permits and all of that, who would be doing that sort of thing? Is that a police function? Is that a?
No, it would be members of the committee,
Of your
volunteer
group.
members of the committee.
And
Exactly.
what authority does this committee have to issue
Yeah.
any regulations or
Yeah.
approve anything?
That's a good question.
That's where I'm going.
But just to add to that, the animal control officer would also be involved in this. So,
Under the structure you've proposed, the animal control officer is part of the.
Animal
process.
control officer is a member of the committee as
I
well.
understand that, but of the approval of the application to hunt
right, as a matter of fact,
on town
we
property.
would come up with some pretty reasonable expectations of whoever we would allow in the town to vote on. The person would actually have to take a test that would be observed by some of the committee.
Was that in what we're, again, I didn't.
It's in
get
the
you.
application.
It's in there.
Right, so the requirements to be qualified to apply for a lottery system to be selected are in that application. They include all of the appropriate licenses that the state requires, the appropriate proficiency test,
Yeah,
and
they're not criminals.
pardon?
That they're not criminals.
Yeah, well,
Right, I mean, the bad guys, we don't want out there, right?
Right.
But can I ask you, Paul, as a legal thing, and certainly whatever else you have to say, have other towns done this via the selectmen, this type of thing, or do they do it at town meeting and bylaws? Because I'm just confused by the hunting bylaw approach here.
Let me answer the question that was pending, then get to that question.
Thank you.
The first one was, who has the authority to do this? And the answer is that the Conservation Commission has the authority to do it, and the Town Forest Committee has the authority to do it. They have the authority. They have not exercised that authority.
Right.
That's why they have representatives on this committee. Number two was, can you repeat what you?
Well, I'm just curious how other towns have gone about doing this, because do we, for selectmen to have authority over
Why the
town
selectmen got
pieces?
involved in this is because it wasn't getting done.
Yeah,
This has been a lingering issue for many years. It came to the selectmen finally as a last resort in 2010.
we created the committee to do something.
So we created a committee. That's the one power the Board of Selectmen has.
Yeah,
We don't have the power to authorize hunters to go on Concom
that's what I was
land.
really
But
getting
we
to.
have the power to appoint the Concom member to a committee,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
we discussed, which leads to the ultimate task of the committee is going to be to take your findings with your Concom rep and go to the Concom and get the buy-in from the Concom. And similarly, go to the Town Forest Committee and get the buy-in from the Town Forest Committee. And between the Concom rep and the Town Forest Committee rep, pick a piece of property that would be good for a pilot program for this fall, for example. It may be town forest land, it may be Concom land,
Yep.
but that's why those two committees
Okay.
are involved in this. What we did and what our function has been is to kickstart this program.
Right, and
To
create the
get people
charge.
talking. So
Yep.
it's somewhat like the United States bringing Palestine and Israel to the same table.
On
and
a
trying to get-
smaller scale, maybe.
Right. That's a little smaller scale.
Hopefully, this is an easier
But just as
process.
important to some.
Kind of bring everybody together to the table and serve as the host and serve as the Kickstarter.
All right, so just legal counsel thing. We have a town bylaw regarding hunting as it relates to discharge of firearms.
Right.
So my follow-up question is just, shouldn't we be thinking in terms of town bylaw over this? And maybe it's subsequent to a pilot program?
I think
I'm
it's
just
too
confused
early.
how-
My sense would be that first, let's find out how it goes. Make sure that no disasters take place. The big joke about hunters is they kill each other. If we have hunters killing each other and there's all kinds of things going wrong,
Well, I mean,
that might
there,
lead to one result. But if it's a smooth program and everything goes well, and it does help the health of our citizens by reducing Lyme's disease and all of that, and has a positive impact, then sure, ultimately, you may want to codify all of this into bylaws, but there's not a legal need to have a bylaw.
that's my question. Yeah.
Because the property management of each of these,
They have the authority, as
They
you
have the
said.
Yeah,
authority.
but we've got plenty of private citizens, some of them at this table, with big tracts of land who could authorize deer hunting on their own land if they wanted to, and I'm sure some private citizens do. So we don't need to force this issue necessarily with town-owned property either. We could have advocates to open up private parcels as well as public parcels
yes, well,
in
what
town to
happens
deer
is,
hunting.
if your goal is to, let's say, cull the deer population, and you do it at one parcel, well, all deer are going to move next door.
Well, that's true
and
whether it's
hide
public
out.
or private. And they
So-
don't know
so-
whether the Conservation Commission or the Forestry Committee owns the land either.
Right. But that's why you want to look at it from a town-wide point of view. And ultimately, I, as a property owner, would feel much more comfortable having somebody hunt on my land who's passed all the tests and I know is not going to shoot one of my cows than simply
Well, in
finding
our
somebody.
bylaw, we require permitting for the discharge of firearms and a piece of a paper approving the hunting on the private owner's property, correct?
But this is no
This
firearms.
is no firearm,
No,
so.
it's-
Their
But
proposal
Paul,
is,
you're making
So-
my point, and maybe you're just agreeing with me. If this committee is to be effective at what they want done, or some future iteration of this committee is to be effective, it needs to be a plan that applies not just to town land and not just to specific boards of town land, but there should be some advocacy to the town as a whole involving public and private landowners with a system that they would propose, and maybe Peter's right, maybe it gets codified in some form, either through regulations, if that's appropriate, or through a bylaw town-wide, where
Eventually,
there's a bow hunting control and some type of incentive or advocacy to get people to open up lands, public or private, to a certain amount of bow hunting for culling the deer.
in the meantime, we had to start somewhere. And so.
Okay,
hopefully-
but I'm concerned with just what you're concerned with, which is all the deer on the forestry land who know they're gonna be hunt, they tiptoe over to the Concom land or to your, hide among your cows or something. And
Well, hopefully they don't read the paper and know that they're about to be hunted. That they're,
oh, they can sneak
they
up on them.
are where they are.
Okay, yeah, I saw that
you sneak
cartoon.
up on them.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have any legal exposures or insurance issues with this that we know of at this stage? I mean, I'm sure we
I
haven't
don't-
really looked into that.
I
but-
think, we can talk to Maya, but we're not the first community to come up with this.
Dover's doing this.
Dover's doing it.
Dover, it's on their webpage, they're,
You're
they're
just
already doing
copying
this.
other communities. We're a little bit
Yeah.
behind, like.
But I sense that this committee was kind of, sort of pushed off the shore and left to kind of float around, and they did the best they could, maybe a little bit later than you would have liked, David, but they came up with something, but it's something they can't implement.
Oh, well, I want to explain that the reason they ended up there was because there was a deadline that was set, that the management plan was supposed to come back. When I asked for a management plan who I had talked to was, Bridget was I guess you guys were co-chairs.
Yes.
Yeah, so I didn't see any work product. So when I recommended them for Sunset, I've seen more information in the last week than I did the previous.
But I agree with you, there should also be a plan, there should be some understanding of, if we know what the population is, what the risk of Lyme disease is, and how many you'd have to cull to reduce that risk and so forth.
Yeah, and I think if you go that route, I think it would take years of compiling that kind of information to
Unless the
go with
state or
it,
some
the
other
data
agency
part.
has that
It's
info.
been done statewide, and it's
Yeah.
been done in other communities. Why do we have to reinvent the wheel here in Sherborn?
We don't, but we need a plan that incorporates that information so they have some knowledge of how many licenses they need and how many deer should be hunted and so forth.
Can I ask one question?
That's how they do it.
What, did Concom or Forestry vote within their committees to open up to hunting on the properties?
Not
Or
to my knowledge.
Or identify any parcels to be?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I did have a conversation with the individual that manages Rocky Narrows for the trustees of reservation, and they have hunting on several of their properties in towns that have that allow bow hunting within the town on town property, and they're willing to consider bow hunting on trustee property with the blessing of the selectmen or the town, as it applies to
All right.
either.
Susie Tyler, and then she's had her hand up for 10 minutes now.
Circulation. Susan Tyler, Western Avenue. I have attended 9 meetings of the Wildlife Management Committee. And at their last meeting that they had, which was August 8th, there was 4 members there. Rick Thompson, you were not there, Bridget was not there, and you were not there. And there was a vote to approve the regulations as written, and then there was the discussion regarding the application. And the discussion on that was that there were 2 concerns that they still had regarding the application, but they took a vote pending the approval of and the input from Chief Thompson regarding the Cory checks and the liability, and the second issue or concern that was stated by the chairman here on the application was that the application be run by town council. There has not been another meeting since of the Wildlife Management Committee since August 8th. The other issue is town forest, their motion, they had made a motion and a vote in May of 2011 that says that they approved the deer hunting on town forest land pending notice of the stipulations as set by the Board of Selectmen and other boards. They have not had seen these applications, they have not seen the regulations, they have had no input in this, they have not authorized any land. Conservation Commission made a motion on June 6th. This was the night that the Wildlife Management did go before Scott Bernard was there and came before Conservation. And they moved that the Conservation Commission will work with the Wildlife Management on a bow hunting plan as long as public input is part of the process and the Commission maintains approval of the final plan and hunting locations. That has not been done. That was the last time, that was June 6th. So to have received or being in the process of receiving an application for something, an application for one, there is no land that has been approved for hunting.
Okay.
Neither committees have seen this.
Can I bring this back to the question before us? Yeah. The question before us is, do we have a committee of volunteers who are willing to work and who have work to do?
Right.
And my point is, indeed, what you've heard.
There's more work to be done,
There's
no
more work to
question.
be done.
Right.
And to some extent, it's not really our jurisdiction to do that work. We need this committee because it interfaces between those 2 other committees, because it does include the public safety officials, includes the animal control officer, it puts everybody at the table who has important insights into this. It includes the stakeholders. And if something is ever going to come together, it's this group that's going to make it happen.
Well, I'm not disputing that. So one of the questions, and just before I speak further, Scott, you had something that you wanted to add, or?
I'll be very brief, just to clarify. I think the work that we did was to come together, to put together a program that we could speak to, defend, explain, and roll out. The one piece that was missing, which is stated in there, is that it's subject to
approval for very specific parcels of land. So the reason we hadn't gone so far as to identify it is because we wanted to get a program down and get your feedback or the town's feedback, and then go to Forest Committee and say, people on the committee looked at this plot, we think it's big enough, we recommend 1 hunter or 2. So that would go parcel by parcel. And then just a quick comment, one of the things we believe is that the areas which aren't hunted become small little habitats where the deer do go.
Yeah, like
just
my
by
yard.
just by having something in there, even if they don't get a deer, it will actually push them out into the private property, and most people would be amazed how much bow hunting goes on in this town in the private property because it's quiet, it's at dawn and dusk, and it's not heavily seen. So I believe that it will have an impact beyond the number of deer that are taken just by pressuring them.
But again, I just want to bring us back. The issue is not what is the program, and is the program good?
Well, he just said it was. He just said that they're here to exactly ask us that question.
But this isn't the time to do it. The issue on the agenda
That's
is,
right.
do we sunset this committee? That's the issue.
And the question on
Not
that
do we
is...
adopt the wildlife plan?
Yeah, and the question on that is, and I think we had
We
a
don't have a wildlife
recommendation
plan.
for the town administrator, because it's a wildlife management committee, whether it should be reporting to him as opposed to reporting to us.
You can't vote on their plan, and when we include
No,
it as background material as their
Yeah.
work deliverable,
No.
so that you could judge on whether to sunset them or not. But to accept
Right.
that plan, it would have to appear on an
I don't know
agenda.
why we would need to accept that plan. It's not our charge. It's not within our purview. Paul's already pointed that out 7 different ways. What I heard Susan say was the forestry committee is willing to allow deer hunting on their land if there's a plan and a program. I don't know why these guys don't stay in business and go talk to the forestry committee soon if they're going to do something this fall.
Yes, but we need to keep them in business.
I agree.
And the question is, do we keep them in business as is, or do we move them under the TA? And I'm
I'd
quite
keep 'em
happy to
I'd
do
keep 'em
that.
as is.
You would?
I would, because the TA has no direct jurisdiction.
Exactly.
And number 2, this committee has all the stakeholders in one place. There is a member of the Town Forest Committee on your committee. There is a member of the Conservation Commission on your...
That's not all the stakeholders. That's a representative of those stakeholders, but
Oh,
they've got to
I
go back to
understand.
the full committee.
I understand.
So that's what they haven't done yet.
It's just like we created a groundwater protection committee. We have everybody, each group in town appointed somebody to that committee. The Board of Selectmen isn't that committee, but we had a representative on that committee.
Right, Paul, but here you've appointed a committee, or we've, I guess, in the institutional
Board
sense,
of
appointed a
Selectmen
committee
appointed a committee, yep.
that we have nothing to do with. It sounds like we have no control over what they're asked to do. We can't do anything other than
We're a
advocate
part
good
of it
policy.
In the sense, maybe I stated it too strongly. We're part of it because, A, somebody needs to show leadership. And at the end of the day, we are the leaders of the town. Number 2, other institutions like the trustees of the reservation and the Concom and the Town Forest Committee are going to look to us. The Town Forest Committee, I believe the last time I talked to them, said that they would adopt a plan if it was okay with us and if it was okay with the public. So ultimately, I would think it would behoove us when they've done a little more work, to actually hold a public hearing, have everybody come in here, hear everything, and give our advice to the Concom, and our advice to the Town Forest Committee, and our advice to the trustees of the reservation, and our advice to the private property owners. And ultimately, if everybody thinks, and there's no opposition, that's fine. If there's opposition and changes have to be made, we need somebody to do all of that. And that's what this committee is doing. So why
They are doing
sunset
it.
them?
I don't want to sunset them.
All right, so we're...
I haven't wanted to sunset them. David wanted to include beavers within their charge. Now that I understand what they do, I don't want to include beavers within their charge either.
Whoa. I'm one of the ones that appointed this committee back in January and voted for it. So I'm disappointed, okay? Since you report to us,
Absolutely.
okay? I'm disappointed that what you've given us is a solution to looking for a problem, okay? That's the way I would construe this. That's okay. Let's call it, we want to do sports hunting of deer. That's great. But the wildlife management plan is a much broader thing. I think the town does deal with much bigger issues more frequently, such as beaver. So I guess I would advise you, as your supervisory body to a small degree, to take the broader perspective in addition to what you're trying to do here. And so I'd ask for that.
And see, and I would disagree with that. I think that's something that's more within David's purview and the Conservation Commission's purview. I don't know why the hunters have to deal with beavers.
Well, this was
Well,
created.
but de
not as a
facto, you
hunting
appointed a
committee.
committee of hunters.
No, no. Oh, no, we didn't. I don't think we did do that.
Well,
This was a broader charge. We specifically went for a broader
Well, that's
charge.
what I'm saying.
But that's not a committee of hunters.
No.
Well, you didn't appoint a committee of beaver and muskrat experts, I mean, which I think you would want if you want to
We did.
control beavers.
We did. We have
So who's on that?
We have an animal control officer.
Okay.
And frankly, Mike, through our meetings, we did actually get a lot of traction on a lot of beaver issues. And we did finally coordinate between our animal control officer, Cod Farm, and the Board of Health to deal with some ongoing beaver issues in the town. So there definitely was some.
But it's been dealt with at the staff level, which is good, which is the way it should be dealt with. And we don't need a citizens committee to make policy for the town staff on how to deal with beavers. We need the experts to advise the town staff so they deal with the beavers.
Right, I feel that we can bring back a management plan for the broad management plan, but that doesn't mean that the committee can't still exist for that purpose of what they've been working on already. I mean, they don't have a wildlife management plan. They've been working on a specific area that you thought you were charged with, is to open up town-owned properties to bow hunting.
That's right.
I think both these things need to be done, but
Right,
I'm
exactly.
hearing two different,
Well, I think-
completely different missions here.
Right, I
Well,
do too.
read what the mission was that I voted on. I would not have supported the prior mission.
Okay.
All right, just so you know. So I
Well,
think that's what we're
then maybe
dealing
we
with.
sunset, then we appoint a new committee then. Maybe that's what we do.
That may be something that we
Because they
want to
haven't
do.
satisfied you as the appointing authority.
That's right.
I wasn't on that board.
That's right.
I don't think I would have voted for something that only focused on beavers, but
So, one of the things that we've learned in the discussions regarding beavers is that the town has a policy through the Board of Health, and the state has very specific requirements on how beavers are to be dealt with and handled. Now, there's probably some better communication that can happen between Conservation Commission and the Board of Health, and then better communication to the citizens of the town. But there is a beaver plan, there's a beaver management plan issued by the state that exists, and we were trying to struggle of how we add to that, because there are very specific laws regarding the harvesting of beavers, how they can be moved, what can be done to beaver dams, and those are all in writing currently. So based on timing, we focused on deer hunting first in hopes that we could prepare a plan for this hunting season, and opened the conversation, obviously, to all of the wildlife issues, and heard many stories from town residents about beavers.
And so, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say that that's from town staff. It's the same argument that I was looking before. When I look at a management plan, I want to talk to chief of police, I want to talk to the Concom agent, I want to talk to our animal control officer and use their expertise to develop a big plan. This focus of the committee seems to be a narrower focus that they're charged with, which is the hunting.
That's not what they're charged with, that's what they have taken upon as their task.
Right, so
that's their first task.
But that's
Which
one
I
piece.
have no, that's fine.
That's one piece of a whole
broad
management plan.
perspective, yeah.
And I don't know if that's their expertise of developing a management plan or the individual component of that hunting piece. That's, if anybody understood.
yeah, I don't see the word beaver in here, and I don't see anything about the town. I just see the town
There's no
public
animals
lands.
in there. That's
Right.
Well, I think a discussion should be an agenda item as to this plan and what other plans, and I would hope that we could have the committee come back and talk about in a couple of weeks, talk about different parts of what they're doing. But the question before us, the agenda item, which we ought to confine ourselves to,
Yeah, probably. whether we sunset the Wildlife Management Committee or not, but that's part of the discussion.
I think we have to have this discussion. We're not making any decisions, we're having a discussion about whether to sunset. Part of it is whether there's a mission out there that they can fulfill. It sounds like you think there is, I think there is, but I think based on what they've done, it should be focused on the deer issue. And I also think this is only an answer, or a proposed answer. It's not a statement of what the problem is or any context for the problem. We need to know that too before we hear from them again. And I'd be willing to continue them in existence with the understanding that they'd come back in a few weeks with that kind of a plan, a statement of the problem, an understanding of what, how it might be addressed, and then a specific proposal if they have one on the deer question.
When does hunting season open? When does the state open?
October 21st.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 3 weeks if we're gonna do something this year.
It sounds pretty impractical to do it for this year, but who knows?
Who knows?
You might get it it goes through into December or something, doesn't it?
It does. It goes through the end of the year.
Yeah.
But am I confused? You'd have to get the Forestry Committee and the Conservation Commission to
authorize.
One of them.
Yeah,
one of them would have to
authorize use of
vote
the
to.
land.
Well, one's already voted to authorize, if it's okay with the board and so on.
Yeah, but I'd
So
be
they-
focused on forestry of anything. It sounds like they're already a step ahead on this.
Sounds like the shortest route to a pilot program.
So just to clarify, the authorization to put hunters in town forest or conservation or even trustee land is ultimately delegated by which committee is the superseding committee that
There is none.
State law says that when you get your hunting license, you also have to get consent of the property owner.
That's right.
And while the property owner ultimately is the people of the town of Sherborn with regard to public land, in fact, the custody of the land has been given to different agencies. So the conservation lands are in the custody of the Conservation Commission.
Mm-hmm.
The town forest land are in the custody of the town forest committee. We as selectmen have jurisdiction over general municipal land. I don't know if any of those lands are huntable. They may, I know, for example,
you got that whole parcel next door. We were talking about earlier. You can ask Nancy Hess's committee.
Property. There you go.
So there may be some land under our jurisdiction. I don't know. But in general, and the school committee has authority by statute to own property, and there may be some land, but I don't think we want to mix hunters up with children.
Good idea.
And as far as trustees of reservation goes, that's private land that they administer. They would have to answer to that, or Sherborn Rural Land, or whoever that is.
Sure. Their policy is that they allow hunting on trustee land in towns that have some type of town-sponsored program.
Okay.
So if we can,
So if the forestry committee or somebody sponsored it, then maybe that would get you in the door there? Is that what you're saying?
Potentially. They specifically identified Board of Selectmen in my conversations with the trustees.
so we may have to adopt some or approve.
Or you think the
these
Board
things
of
too.
Selectmen might have to? Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. I can find out and
Yeah.
clarify that.
I mean, this is a huge public health problem, and it's in Sherborn and a lot of other places, the overpopulation.
It's been identified
I
in
mean,
several
This
towns.
is good work that you've, I think, good work that you focused on that. I mean, it's a controversial issue, but I think it's an
Sure.
important topic.
Susan.
Yeah, I just want to say, I was here at the meeting when you created this committee. I wasn't here at the beginning, but I heard the discussion going on, and I booted it down here. And I specifically asked that originally, back in 2010, it was going to be the Deer Management Committee. Now it was being called the Wildlife Management Committee. And I specifically asked, what do you mean by wildlife? And it was clearly stated at that table that it could be whatever the committee felt like, but that it should be the deer and the coyote and the beavers. Now, again, I have attended 9 meetings of this committee, and there has been the consensus of the members there, the 7 members, that yes, coyotes are a bigger issue than deer. Beavers are a bigger issue than deer. But the problem is you have a few hunters on the committee, and you have a member of the Conservation Commission who is on there that will not discuss anything to do with the beavers or anything else, Nope, it's just the deer. So it's not a very productive committee.
Well, we're not gonna, I
And
don't want,
No, but it's also, it's not broad enough, and you will never get the deer hunting done this year. You have still got questions on the application. You have no land chosen. So go back and start focusing on a broader picture.
well, we're not gonna pick on the committee and how they do their business.
I
It's
also
great we
disagree
have-
with some of those statements, but
And you may, yeah.
we can,
yeah. Yeah, no, I think
save
we're
that for later.
thankful to the folks that are serving on this committee for doing what they've done.
Yeah, let me say what I've said
Yeah.
throughout the evening, that volunteers who come forward and are willing to serve the town, that's priceless to us. That's how this community works. Thank you for coming forward. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for putting up with a lot of
Well, we're figuring it out as we
effort.
go along here, you know?
and frustrations. It's not easy to be a volunteer. The pay is poor, and you're always subject to
The
criticism.
rewards are endless. Rewards are, but David, you've spoken to the animal control officer regarding the deer population. What's his sense these days, just to follow on
I
what
mean,
Mike said?
he reported to me the data that normally around this time of year, he would have had about 70 kills that he'd picked up, whether they were hit by cars or whatever. And he told me he was at about 35.
So his sense is it's a diminishing population? is
Right, but when I
stated?
talked to the conservation agent about that, no, he didn't say that it was,
A diminishing.
those were the numbers. And then when
Okay.
I talked to the conservation agent, she's basically saying, well, you don't have a wildlife management plan to even know what the data that you're supposed to be
Right,
collecting over
right.
the years. So you don't even know where that's reported on whether it's going up or down, so.
Right, we don't really know, yeah.
But that highlights another public safety issue with regard to deers in particular. When people hit a deer, you can really get damaged.
Oh, I know.
Not just the deer, but you, the driver,
Yeah.
in the dark of night.
My,
Many people don't understand that deers travel in groups. So they see a deer go by and they say, good, great, now I can go. But there's a second deer that's bounding right behind it. And you'll find out to your dismay.
Dancer and Prancer, is that?
Yeah, right. Oh, you're in rare form today.
yeah. My favorite son was driving to the high school, home from the high school, and in my favorite Saab, and he hit Big Buck, and Buck won, Saab lost, big time.
Is Petey hurt?
No, he wasn't hurt, and Jim Burns was there at the time and made him calm. It was great, nice of him. Yeah, no, he wasn't hurt.
Well, can
Okay,
I
well,
suggest we keep this
Well,
committee?
Yeah,
some
we-
more good news is we've got moose and bear in the general region too.
I
So we
know.
can start dealing with those soon too.
I
Bear?
know, Bear,
Not
they'll
here,
be
but
coming.
there's been one in Lincoln within the past couple of years. You had what?
Had one back there about 5 years ago.
A bear, there you go.
Bear might be on your agenda, but I think your committee is heading on the right direction. Focus, put energy on things that you can accomplish, and then kind of move down the list rather than trying to go scattershot and go everywhere and deal with bears and whatever else. Focus, get something done, move on. I would move we keep this committee.
I think the Bears had a meeting, they decided there were too many people.
Yeah, okay, it's been moved and seconded to keep the committee not sunset. Do you have any input, David, because you got that look in your eye here?
Well, you just need to, I mean, if you're not going to sunset them, you gotta reappoint them. So do you want us to bring them back to reappoint them, or what do you want to do? You want to change the charge, narrow the charge?
Keep it going.
Because I think our vote said we would choose to either let them die or not, and we've chosen not.
So
You
you,
continue in office until,
Well, let's just see what our,
It says it disbanded.
I wish that could have been
Unless
disbanded.
otherwise determined.
I can
by-
guarantee you, if you don't recharge them or re-up them or reappoint them, that it'll become an issue with somebody somewhere that the committee was supposed to have been to report back, and they didn't report back. So there
Right,
should
so
be
for
something
the
for
next-
posterity
that's
that
not for this
Next
meeting.
re-up.
meeting, David.
No, but I'm saying, do you want it brought back at another meeting to
Yes.
reappoint
Yes.
each of the individual members?
yes.
I think we should consider that if somebody needs to be, doesn't want to continue to serve, that should be brought back.
we've had our consideration
That's
for
not our-
sunsetting. We're not going to do that at this stage.
It's not on
And,
the agenda.
And David, I don't think that should stop you, the continued existence of this committee should stop you from dealing with the beaver problem with the other staff people either, pending whatever some group may come up with as a plan.
And David, you also have an intern who's expert in this sort of thing, correct? Or becoming expert in this sort of thing?
He's
Who's a
counting
resource
deer.
that you may utilize, right?
He's out counting
He
deer.
keeps falling asleep.
He's out counting deer.
Watching the
So
deer
he's,
fall
he's,
asleep.
he's doing he's doing a paper or a project on
His
deer
senior
management
thesis
or
is
something.
on deer management and wildlife
So there's a
management.
resource that the town has
Are we appointed to
available.
this committee?
He'll serve.
You could.
And of course, the town administrator is a resource
Is he
too.
over
So-
18?
So I would hope that you come forward
Yes.
ultimately with a good plan, as Michael was talking about, that talks about what are the problems, what are we trying to solve, and the end solution is in part what you've put forth here, I think.
And then work on the forestry committee or
Yeah.
trustees or whoever it is to get an experimental program in place if you want to, or a pilot program, see how it goes.
For duration, yeah.
And is the application going to be vetted by town council, or?
Yeah, that's up
Sure.
to Dave Williams here.
Yeah, and I'll
That's
be
what
looking at
the
it closely,
committee-
and I'll have 27 questions for him.
Sure.
Turkeys on this too, don't you?
Along with that
turkeys,
was,
Committee, I know
It's
you're a
all
tur- I know you're a
wildlife.
turkey guy.
Yeah, I used to have turkeys bothering me, so.
so town council, we also have a request that town council review liability issues or
Yes.
waiver
Yes,
issues that
Okay.
town council would create.
Yeah, you have the hunter sign a release.
A
of the
waiver,
town.
a
Yeah,
release,
yeah,
exactly.
Waiver,
right.
just like the schools have for athletic trips that we've all
Right.
signed when we send our kids.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great.
So where do we stand?
I move that the committee.
We haven't
continue.
sunsetted you, so we're not, we don't even.
I
okay.
think the charge says that we have to take affirmative action. They will
You have a
end.
pending motion, right, on the
Yes.
floor to continue them?
Yeah, okay, and it's been seconded, all in favor?
No, they haven't been sunsetted, so
So we
We'll
voted not to
continue
sunset them, and we
at
continue.
this point.
They originally had, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they originally had a deadline of a date to come back with something.
Yeah, we just had that discussion, and we'll be addressing them in the future, but right now it's not an agenda
Sunsetted
item.
unless otherwise, or
Yeah.
just mean unless otherwise determined by the selectmen. We just determined otherwise. And then next session, we're going to talk about appointments, I think.
Yes. All right,
Thank you.
sound good?
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for stepping forward and volunteering.
All right.
I hope you didn't feel like you had a target on your back.
Well, should I show that now, Diane?
You know, regarding bears,
I'll show my joke. Tomorrow, I'm talking to the Council on Aging, so I'm going to have a part where they question and answer, so I brought that. So I shouldn't show that.
That's good.
If you want to borrow it, you know.
Not a room with
It's going to be standard issue for all the selectmen pretty soon.
that for the proficiency test.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
regarding bears in the town, when I was driving around, I saw a sign that said "Bear left."
That was it.
That was really not funny. Next meeting types of things, David and I have a whole list of things to look forward to on future meetings. The question
Yes.
is whether we have a meeting next week. We'll let you know Monday at the latest.
yeah.
We tentatively have a plan for a meeting, right?
Do,
Yes. And then the following meeting is a Wednesday night with advisory.
right.
I prefer not to have next week, but
You prefer, okay, it depends, it might be a juicy agenda. What part of it could likely be a preparation discussion for advisory, and what else did we say we wanted to do?
I thought we were having town accountant.
Town accountant come in? Yeah.
But we'll look at
I'm
it.
sure I'll be around, but okay.
Okay, that's all right.
Let's look at it.
We'll look
and see
at
what
it.
we
If it's
can-
an issue, we can.
Where are we on our free cash number? Is it at DOR, waiting to be certified?
No, I don't think it's been submitted.
Before we adjourn, one thing, and Peter and I were
Yes.
both at this meeting, I don't think you were, Paul, but that was a very eye-opening meeting with
Yes.
the Pulte Homes folks a couple weeks ago. The biggest crowd I've seen at a hearing like that in Sherborn ever, I think. I mean, maybe there have been a few others, but that was a packed room, both sides of the
Right.
room. Hostile crowd, shouting people down, very ugly. It's a
watched
Very
it.
emotional
it's a real
issue.
issue, yeah.
Very emotional.
Well, the one thing we need to insist on is civility. And if you have a committee and you have hostile people, I don't like hearing about people being shut down and shouting and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, it was- I mean, it
We
was-
gotta treat everybody
Yeah,
It was not we didn't call that meeting, right? That was that committee called the meeting, and they managed it, I guess, to the best of their ability.
right.
But it was, crowd members standing up and pointing at each other as well as.
It was a difficult environment.
It was difficult. Peter did a good job of sort of summing up that we were not we didn't solicit that proposal, we didn't support that proposal, it hadn't been brought to us.
And there's
as
an
a committee.
extensive process ahead of the
Right.
developer to get anywhere, so.
Right, but that's, I think.
And I did talk about civility too, but I want to put my back against the wall, and Mike was at the exit just in case we
Yeah,
had
we
to
had it all set
bug
up,
out,
but,
and there was a man
but
in
we're gonna
blue.
we're gonna be dealing with this issue
Yeah.
for months to come.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's important for us to not take a position until we give due process to the applicant.
Yeah.
That is, whatever the proposal is that they want, presumably
There are a number of
LIP
boards.
project?
Well, there are a number of boards that will have to go through, and
Yes,
at some
and
point it'll get
town
to town
meeting.
meeting, and then we'll have to take a position at town meeting, I assume.
Right.
Right.
But it doesn't come to us as a board. It's set through the town
It
meeting
could come to
process.
us as a board once
Good.
they sign a P&S, right? Isn't that because it's a 61 property that we,
Well,
the
that's right.
option might
That's
come to
right.
us, right?
That's true, too.
They
Right?
may want to go for an LIP project.
That's not how they've set it up, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They're going under the EA zoning at this
Right.
point. Or the senior affordable zoning, as we're going to
So
call
then
it.
they gotta go yeah, we ought to change the name of that to senior, this elderly business, but that's
That's,
another story. The, going to town meeting, that's gonna require a 2/3 vote, so
That's right.
people will have a chance to
Weigh in multiple
weigh in.
times.
It'll be a long town meeting.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen of their communications, they haven't even finalized their plans yet, it's still in flux.
That's right.
They haven't finished.
That was part of the problem with that meeting. They walked into an ambush. It was, they walked in with a very preliminary plan and really just a concept and a tentative business deal. And a lot of the people in the crowd wanted answers that they didn't have. And it went downhill from there.
Yep. And I think it was filmed, wasn't it? So it's
Was
running?
it? Okay.
So it's running on cable? Yeah.
Good.
So it's an interesting,
But again, we need to maintain civility in the town. Even if our residents are fired up, they need to treat everybody with respect, including members of committees, and including treating themselves, each other, with civility. So
yeah, it was a tough crowd.
You were in the camera room? That's right, yeah.
Yeah, she was over there. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
we need to learn
Motion to
to
adjourn?
Motion to
disagree without
adjourn. Do
being
I have a
disagreeable.
second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for
Thank you.
staying. Appreciate it.
The most excitement we've had in a while. Deer and beavers and moose and bears.